Party with your host, Dustin Rybka.
Hello and welcome to Sex Party. I'm your host, Dustin Rybka. This is episode 39, and this week is a special one because we have our first returning guest to the show, Carla Romo. She's an author. She's the co-host of the Love Fix podcast, and she's back, motherfuckers. Carla was on the show prior. We talked about codependency. We talked about her book. She's back this week to talk to me about intuition. What the fuck is intuition? Is it scientific? Is it supernatural? Is it a bit of both? How do we dial into it? Can we use it to predict the lottery? Can we use it to move objects around the room? Can we communicate with each other telepathically? We're going to get into all of that stuff. Kind of, not really, but you know, you get how this works. Stupid people. Can you be stupid and still be intuitive? Carla also gives a crazy statistic about how many women actually know that they are being cheated on without having it confirmed. And it's alarmingly high. We love Carla. We're very, very happy to have her back. So without further ado, let's just jump into it. This is my conversation with Carla Romo.
This week's conversation.
Carla Romo, welcome back. Welcome back to Sex Party. How are you?
Woohoo!
Yeah.
I'm back. Sex Party was so great the first time that I had to come back for more.
Well, we love hearing that. And, you know, I think this is going to be the era of like the returning guests. It's that time in the show. You know, we're in the upper 30s and whatever in the episode count. So here we go. Welcome back.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. I had a blast with you last time. We talked about psychopaths, which was a blast. You know, obviously, like you're out there with your podcast and your book, like doing cool fucking shit. And we're friends on Instagram.
Yes.
And I saw. Well, first of all, how are you? Let's talk to you.
I'm doing good. You know, I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm good too. Weirdly enough. Yeah.
Okay. I like that.
Yeah. Things are. I mean, I think I don't know. The world's kind of insane, but at the same time, like, when has the world not been insane? So let's make a drink.
Yeah. You know, I have to say though, I feel like social media makes it feel so much more heightened and so much more intense.
Mm-hmm.
I think actually the world's always been insane, but now it's just the news travels so quickly and it's so unfiltered that it feels really personal. You can be sitting in your living room and find out 5 different things that are going on in the world that are heartbreaking, as opposed to, I don't know, maybe 100 years ago waiting for the newspaper to come out and then finding out days later what's going on.
Yeah.
It's
And
heavy.
I think it's really heavy. But for me, I think I got to a place where it's like, you know, 2020, 2021, like it was kind of like, oh my God, the world is so fucked, right? And then now it's like 2022 is like, oh my God, the world is so fucked. Like, you know?
Totally. It's still fucked. It's just fucked. It's not fucked.
Yeah. I'm not scared anymore. I'm kind of like, okay.
Yeah.
I guess we can have another vodka soda and fucking tequila shot if we want, like whatever. And I think that's important because, man, fear is a motherfucker, and everybody's been acting like silly, and now it's like,
yes,
you know, it's like that party where everyone like takes drugs and like acts like insane, and then afterwards it's like, oh shit, like, man, how are we gonna talk about this or like whatever. I think we're at that part, right, where it's like some people are still on drugs, other people are like sobering up, and it's kind of like, oh, I was a real dick to my neighbor about this, whatever.
People are starting to come around. Right.
Yeah.
I have a good acronym for fear that I feel like your listeners might like. So that is false evidence appearing real.
I love that.
It's just good. It gets you out of that idea. And like I say, like, look, if there really is a hurricane coming your way and you got to, you know, get out, like that's real fear. Okay. So we're not talking that fear, but we're just talking about like everyday, you know, thoughts that we have about ourselves and the way that we perceive ourselves in this world. And what roles we play in it, and holding back from going after a relationship because you're scared, or holding back from ending a relationship because it's just not right or healthy for you. You know, it's a lot of that is just false evidence appearing real.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. Because fear is like the most real, unfortunately, is like the most real thing. And like, I think, and I've kind of like been a wacko about this in these recent episodes, but like fear is like it's like a currency on social media. People run ads. You don't look this way. You should imagine what Steve at the
Yeah.
gym would think if you got lip filler or like whatever, right?
Yeah.
So that sucks. But then there is like the other fear too and it's all the same, I think, where it's like I don't want to leave this relationship, maybe I don't want to leave this job, and so yeah, I mean, how much is that coming up for your listeners, your clients, like,
Yeah.
for anyone around you? Are you like coaching, talking people through fear a lot? Are you teaching them to like
Oh,
hit back?
yeah, because I coach all around the blocks, right? And so whether it's us talking about it on my podcast, which is I'm a co-host, the Love Fix podcast, or I'm coaching my clients one-on-one or group coaching. The Love Fix is doing a group coaching course right now. So whether it is that, right, like the fears of I'm not enough, and so therefore I'm going to project that belief, this limiting belief, onto my relationships or in my relationship or into my dating life. And so a lot of this is just pushing past fear. And I have to be real, it's being kind to yourself, because fear is a motherfucker and it is nasty to you, and it will make you live a life that you do not feel happy in. And it really is the root of those blocks. That's what's actually holding you back. But if you can kind of dismantle the fear and right size it and see that it's actually just false, it's an illusion, then you can go off and be in these awesome relationships and really own your dating life and end that relationship that's no longer serving you. So it's really taking control back over your life and not letting fear run it.
Which is insanely important, because I think when you live with fear long enough, you sort of sometimes to go back to the drug fueled party. Why am I like this? But
what's crazy? I've never done any drugs.
Really?
Yes, I don't even drink alcohol. It's all by choice too. Like I've never been drunk. It's not like religion or anything like that. Like I loved going out in college, and like I'd have people drink for me during. I mean, okay, I'm talking about college, you guys. It's been years. It's been years, okay? But even when I lived in LA, I'd love going out, go to clubs and like go out to like the bars and it's, yeah. So anyways, but I like the analogy because I'm the sober one standing there
right.
watching,
Yeah.
watching everyone sober up at 2:00 or try to. So,
so bad, right? Like that feeling of, well, you don't know, but I do. Like
I've watched people. I don't. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think that's interesting. Do you think that you haven't done drugs or drank or done anything because is it like you don't want to grant control to some weirdo substance, or?
Yeah, I like being in control of me.
Yeah.
So that's it. That has played a really massive part in my choice of just not choosing to drink, which is hilarious too, because I'm an extreme extrovert. So whenever I take those tests, it's like 99, 98% extrovert. And I get like high off of being around people. Like I freaking love it. Like I just feel so much energy and I have fun. And I'm a really goofy person. Like, like you might not see that, but I'm like really odd and fun in a goofy way.
Yeah.
I feel like most people are secretively, but I don't mind as much publicly to do it when I'm out with friends and stuff. So sometimes people would be like, "Oh, she's so drunk," and they're like, "No, she just acts like this."
Well, you're back on Sex Party, so I could tell that you're kind of a weirdo, right? And like that's why I asked you to come back.
There you go.
Because I'm a kind of a nut job, and so it's a good back and forth. It's a good vibe. And
love it.
I love that idea. That's super respectable and admirable that you haven't done anything. And I think, I mean, you could always cut loose at some point, right? Like for me,
sure.
like for instance, like I cannot like weed is like my kryptonite, right? So I'm like super extrovert. I'm all about the people and the party and all this stuff.
Yeah.
But like if I smoke weed, I will wind up like in a fucking closet or a coffin or somewhere like paranoid as shit. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
you're like, I know not to stay away.
Yeah.
Well, I don't even think it's admirable, to be completely honest, because I don't think drugs are actually bad for you in moderation. Like, I have nothing wrong with people using drugs. I do think, however, and I coach, codependency is like really my focus a lot of times in terms of my coaching. And obviously I coach beyond codependency too, but I wrote a book on codependency. My podcast has to do with codependency. So my thing is that when it becomes addiction, right, that's different. And I think that, addiction and drugs play a really big part with each other. And then that can also ruin relationships, and that can create the cycle for codependent relationships. So I don't think there's anything wrong with drugs if people are using recreationally, or, it doesn't make you paranoid and make you go crazy. It's like, whatever. That, I don't know. That's just my philosophy.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. I love drugs and I love alcohol, but like, just for me, it's like, I don't really do any drugs like currently, whatever I've done all sorts of drugs, right?
Sure. Yeah.
But it's just never really been, for me, it was like, okay, can't do weed, kind of like alcohol a lot, fun, right?
Yeah.
But even that, it's like, oh, I can't, like, I think a lot of it is, you kind of internally, like what you like, what you don't want to even whatever. And so that's different for everyone. And whether people like fucking party or don't or whatever, right? Good for you guys, because you're making personal choices, and that's the name of the game, right? And it sort of leads into what we're going to chat about today, right? So I saw you posted something. I think it was a reel. I could be mistaken. It was about intuition.
Yep.
And I was like,
following your gut.
Yes. So I have to get Carla back on the show to talk about intuition, because, I mean, come on, we haven't really tackled it on the show yet. And I think this all plays into it. Like your internal, like, this is bad for me, but it's like, man, I'm only going to take one hit. And then you take 2 hits and you're, in the back of a garbage truck. Well, how did I get here? Like, whatever. Right. So like, I've been there, so what, this is like a real, like, big topic, right? Intuition. I feel like most people ignore theirs. So I guess my question to you is, when you made that reel, right? What was your intuition telling you about how well it would do, right?
I actually think I don't remember which one it was that you commented on or whatever, but I actually don't think that one did that well. My intuition one at least didn't. I don't think did that well recently. But I didn't care. Like I really don't care. Like I love the community I've built on social media. That's why I care to see it, and whoever needs to see it sees it. Like I don't care about the numbers. It's like that's a byproduct of being able to spread the message and help people.
Totally.
But it's interesting because, I, in my personal life, I can tell you, like, before I went on my self-love, self-growth journey and really like broke free from my codependency, and that's what my book Contagious Love is on, I did not listen to my gut. That's what I call it. That's my intuition. Like I feel it in my gut, and it is distinctive. And I had a lot of trauma in my childhood. We talked about it on your podcast before, and how it kind of clouded decisions that I made. And once I became conscious of what was going on, I could make choices around it. So in 2015, I had left a relationship that was abusive, and I had decided, at that moment that if I ever feel that there are red flags or my gut is off in any relationship moving forward, I owe it to myself to follow it and end the relationship, like if something were to happen. And so I can tell you right now, like as somebody who went from not listening to it, like getting myself in like really unhealthy relationship situations, unhealthy just work situations as well. If you're codependent, it like bleeds out everywhere. It's not just your relationships. It's a relationship to work, relationship with, whatever the hell a relationship you've got in your life. And I can tell you today, and this is just me talking personally, and I help hundreds of people do this too, but I can tell you today, I have always followed my gut. And that has always led me into the right path. It's not always the path you want. And I have to be completely transparent with that. It can fucking suck. I'm just going to be blunt here. Like you could want one thing in life, but you follow your gut and intuition and find out information to put things that are seeming off and feeling off versus turning a blind eye and saying, oh, I'm in denial. I'm going to ignore it because I'm afraid of being alone, or I'm afraid that the relationship's not going to work out, or I'm, whatever, right? All these afraid what ifs, the fear again that we were talking about earlier. But I will tell you right now, it will always lead you exactly where you're supposed to be going if you follow it. And I can say that from personal experience. And then as a professional and an expert in dating and relationships, I help clients do this every day. I literally ask clients, I mean, I'm sure there's a client listening right now who is like, oh yeah, Carla's always asking, what does my gut say? Like, what am I really feeling? And where do I feel it in my body? And what's my gut telling me? Because that shit does not lie. Your gut always, always tells the truth.
Yeah, and so I love that. And I have so many questions, but okay, so what does intuition feel like to you personally, right? Because we had a similar question about codependency in the last episode, but like, what is your intimate definition? This is becoming a tradition, but what is your intimate definition of intuition?
My definition of intuition is that pit in my stomach that I cannot get rid of. No matter how much I try to paint red flags green, it just doesn't go away. And it's there and it will keep popping up. And I try to push it away. And maybe for like, if you try to push that away a little bit, it would work. But as I always say, the red flags get bigger and bigger and your gut just roars so loud that you just can't ignore it anymore.
Right.
And so that's how I would define my gut feeling. And I've had a very interesting relationship with my gut feeling, I could say, throughout my life. And I can say today that I follow it like to a T. So the second I start feeling something's off, I can actually sit there and do this, like, it's almost like a meditative practice. So I can sit here and just like, okay, hold on. Let me just like scan my body. Let me just feel it. Let go, relax, release. And then I'm like, oh no, that's my gut. Mm-hmm. And I have to be honest, the choices that I make today in my life, that really, it's not really as prevalent, but I guide it for me on so many different things in my life. I guide it around relationships. I guide it around business decisions, just, certain things that I just, something doesn't feel right. So you know what? I don't have to explore it. Like I can just decide not to go do this thing because something's not right. Something is not adding up here and I don't have to go find out why. Now, I'm not using it as a way to prevent myself from going and doing things. I actually use it as a guide to just be in tune with myself and not try to make excuses or whatever the distractions because I personally want something, but yet it doesn't feel right.
Yeah, no, there's so much there. And I love this. First of all, I love this topic and I love that I'm talking about it with you. And you open with that statement, you open a lot of doors, a lot of ways that I could jump, in this little multiverse of podcasting we have going on here. I think so physically, right? Are there physical signs, right? Let's just really boil this down for a second. Let's pretend someone is just arrived here on Earth and they're not a human. And it's like, oh, it's my intuition. Like people would be like, what or whatever, right? And so are there physical signs? Like, cause I have some, so I'm just wondering like if you do.
Yeah. Okay. So everybody's different. I just want to say that. So sometimes I've asked clients, what does your like gut say? And I always make the distinction. It doesn't have to be in your gut. Some of my clients feel it in their chest or their heart. Some of it's like a body sensation. For me personally, it's a pit in my stomach. It's really defined in there. So everybody's is different. So what is yours? I would love to see.
Great question. I think that mine is, it is sort of like a upper stomach, lower chest, like below the chest, but like right in the middle.
Diaphragm.
Yeah, there we go. Jesus. Well, yeah. Thank you.
I'm a doctor as well. No, I'm kidding.
She performs surgery only on Saturdays. No, but at the vet's office. But removing bullets from bad guys. Okay, so we were on Ozark for a second there. But no, it is. It's right in the diaphragm, and it feels like definitely uncomfortable, but not pain. So I would say that.
Yes, it's a discomfort. Yeah. Oh God, like that. You just know when it's not right, and the crazy thing is that like it doesn't really go away until you address it.
Yeah, that's very true. That's very true.
Like you can numb it out a little bit. Like you can tell yourself lies. you can logicalize, which isn't a word, but I think I'm going to create that as a word. I use that word all the time. You can logicalize it, but it doesn't work.
Yeah, no, that rolls off the tongue too. Logicalize. You can. You're right, and I think people, we can get really good at lying to ourselves.
Mm. Yes, which brings in the fear, because when you're afraid, right, of something to happen or that something's going to happen and it's an illusion of control. You're trying to prevent it. You're trying to control the situation. Then you're going to, at that point, right, like you're going to try to grasp onto it and try to make it the outcome that you want, which is ignoring anything that your body's telling you. And
yeah.
I also just want to throw this out there. I am not a woo-woo person. I'm spiritual. And so like, I get people might be like, what the, like, well, this is okay, whatever. But I am an extremely spiritual person, but there's no like any time, like it's just my own personal relationship with I call it universe, higher power, God, whatever. So everybody has intuition, whether you actually want to listen to it or not.
This is actually, we've arrived already early. We showed up early at my favorite.
Sorry.
No, it's great. Listen, I'm with you. We like get to joke around, have fun, but we get to the shit too, right? So it's like a great back and forth. But this is great because we can open this part of it up and just fucking have a great time with it. But I think there is, people want to think like, oh, like that's not real. Like they don't, and it's actually why I asked you on the show, because there is a belief that intuition is like woo woo, right? It is kind of like, you weirdo, what are you, a psychic, and like all of that, and all of that stuff does play into intuition, but there's also, I think, and I can't remember where I pulled it from, but there's also like a very human, very logical, logicalized version of an explanation for what intuition is. And it's like, on that more logical front, it's like, you've spent your whole life in this body, and you've gotten used to the way the wind blows and the way things sound and information, and it's all working together in unison to provide a real-time update for your safety and your whatever, right? Which blows my fucking mind out of my eyeballs. Like I can't
totally.
It's like, what in the total, like goosebumps, right? Because if that's really happening, which it appears that it is, that's like almost like we don't need to be woo woo. We have that. That's woo woo enough,
Totally. Yes.
Yeah. So if you could talk about that side of it, to where those systems as a human being are working to provide you with sort of the safety thing, but also like, oh, are you sure you want to be in this relationship, or you're allergic to peanuts, why are you eating that, or whatever, like all of that.
Yeah. Right. So there's a therapist who does trauma work. Her name's Deb Dana, and we had her on the Love Fix podcast, and she talks a lot about polyvagal theory. I just have to say, I'm not a therapist, I'm a coach, but
and a doctor. I'm just kidding.
That removes bullets from bad guys on Saturdays only.
Yes.
So we interviewed her on the podcast, and what she was saying is that our nervous systems subconsciously talk to each other. Okay. So yes, this is a theory, but it is based in trauma and psychology. Okay. So basically what your body is doing is, you cannot actually fake it and make it type of thing. You can pretend on the outside, but your body subconsciously is constantly reading somebody else's nervous system. So whether they're at a heightened state, or they're relaxed, or they're in fight or flight, like you can pick up on that. And so I would say that actually would have to do somewhat with the feelings that you get. So if you ever have fell in love with the spark, and you're like, oh, this spark is so good, it's amazing, like they're the ones, and then it blows up in your face, and you're like, he was a narcissist, like what happened, like this is crazy. It's because your nervous system, in theory, right, is recognizing something familiar within each other's nervous systems. It doesn't necessarily mean it's right. It doesn't necessarily mean that I should go after this person, that this will be a healthy relationship, which is why the spark is a really interesting phenomena. And somebody could be listening and being like, yeah, well, I have the spark and I'm in an awesome relationship. Great. That's awesome. Okay. Like, it doesn't have to be for every single person. It's not foolproof. It's a theory. But I think here, just kind of looking at what is our nervous system telling us, because that's really, I think, what's rooted in, and I could be wrong. Okay. I could totally be wrong in this. So it's fine if somebody wants to disagree, but I really think that our nervous system is telling us something subconsciously that we can't connect to, that is within our gut feeling, that we on a conscious level can't say why we're feeling it, that like you're feeling XYZ about somebody or something. But I can ask any of my clients who have been with people who were toxic in relationships, or people who are toxic or have been cheated on, and I can ask them, did you ever feel your gut was off? And I always, always, always hear my clients say, yes, something was not right. And so I think that it's learning to trust ourselves, because it's really easy. I'm going to use the word again, logicalize. It's really easy to logicalize our thoughts and to say, okay, well, of course you're feeling that way. Like, you're anxious about getting to know this person, or they said they cheated in the past, but they said they've changed their ways and they see things differently. I'm just going to believe them, even though my gut feels really off when they just told me all about their ex and how they cheated on them. And so it's easy, right? Like, I always call it, like, it's painting red flags green, which is really painting your gut away, but it doesn't go away. It just comes back in some kind of way. So what feels off now is going to continue on throughout a relationship.
Yeah, that's huge. And I am an incredibly intuitive person, but there's a catch, right? For me at least. And I would love for there not to be a catch, but hey, sorry, there's a catch. So I am incredibly, almost like terrifyingly, ever since I was little, I guess, like, very, very intuitive. I was able to be like, oh, this is what this person needs to hear. This is what this person is going to wear. This is what, I mean, like, scary, scary, scary. And,
Sure.
When I was in high school and a teenager and in college, like, I was doing a lot of the drinking and experimenting and, weed and closets and all of the other fun things. And I didn't lose that, but I disconnected from it. Right. And then after college and
Yes.
whatever. And, I was a nightclub promoter for a really long time, and my intuition was almost never wrong about a person, about the way a competitor was going to run their marketing, about all this stuff. The catch is that if I try to use it, if I try to log into the system, it goes away. And everything I do and say is like kind of wrong, right? If I just sort of like let it come to me and act on those things that are coming to me, it is so insanely amazing. And so my audible cue is like all of these psychology books and whatever for the last 10 years, because I'm trying to figure out, wow, I have this amazing gift. And yet I can't use it knowingly, willingly, right? It just comes to me. For instance, I'll give you an example. I was in Las Vegas one time. I will give no context to this because it'll make it more fun. But I was with a friend, and she's like, I'm going to introduce you to a good friend of mine. She's getting married, tomorrow or whatever. And so I met this girl, this woman, and we had a conversation for a couple of minutes. She walked away, and then she's like, so what do you think? Like, do you think her marriage is going to work out? And I was like, well, does her fiance know that she likes to be like, I was just joking, right? I don't know where this came from. Does her fiance know that she is like really wild in the bedroom? Like, she likes to really rough, like be slapped around and shit. And she's like, white as a ghost. It's like, how the fuck did you know that? Did you know her? What is this, a joke? Like, got like angry, right? And I'm like, oh, I have no idea where that just came out, right? It just came out. It was something about maybe the eyes or like the body language, but I wasn't recording that and taking notes. It just came out of my mouth. And that's like a wilder, weirder example to give on the podcast or whatever, but like that happens all the time. And it's really frustrating for me because of that catch. If It also works in like
Yes.
delis and stuff too. If someone's having a bad day or something, I'm like, oh, I can tell, and I can comfort that person without even knowing who it is. And then I'll walk out and be like, whoa, wait a minute. Did I just talk about someone's nephew for 7 minutes and I had no idea who that person? So it happens, and it just has a mind and a
So
life of its
interesting.
own. It's like a different life form.
Okay, so I'm about to out myself as in a sense of like how my intuition can be really strong. Okay, so now I'm moving away just from like just my own personal life gut feeling and kind of what you're talking about, almost like psychic feelings. Okay, and I am not woo woo. Okay, I just have to put that out there. It's gonna make me sound woo woo, but whatever. So
You have said it twice.
yeah, okay. Maybe I should just embrace being woo woo. Like I should just like convert into that.
I think so.
All right. So I was okay. There's 2 instances. So one, I remembered this distinctively in middle school. I just like I keep talking about like high school. What is college and middle school? And, okay, whatever. Anyways, middle school. I walked out of like whatever. It was this bell rang. We walked out, and I was waiting for the bus. And I just went up to my friend and I just said to her, "Something really bad's going to happen tonight, and it's not in my family, but I just have this feeling." Fuck, you're laughing. This is not funny.
Oh my God, Jesus.
Okay, now I'm laughing because I'm uncomfortable. This is so messed up. Oh my God, I hate that I'm laughing. Okay, it's because I feel uncomfortable.
Here we go.
So I said to her, I said this to her, and that night her grandma passed away.
Oh my God, that isn't funny.
No, it's not. That's why I was saying I felt really uncomfortable because you started laughing and then I was like, oh God, I can't stop.
Oh, well.
Which is like awful. But she and I recalled that time years later, maybe when we were in like college or something, and just like how crazy that was. So here's another one. This person is my best friend, one of my best friends, and to this day, but we were living together. And at the time I didn't know what was going on. She was having a personal issue with somebody in her family that was really sick. And at that time I just said to her, I'm just getting a really weird feeling and I need to get it out. I said it to her specifically. I said, something really bad is about to happen. I just know it. And I just have that pit in my stomach and it's just not right, but something really awful is going to happen. And she later told me, she's into woo woo. She has a psychic, but she later told me that, this person in her family was really sick and was about to die. And she said, that's so crazy that you just like came to me and shared that because you had no context of what was really going on at the time. And I had just met her. I'd only been living with her for like a month, maybe. So I feel you, Dustin, on this shit where it's like, I get weird things that come to me and I know I'm not alone. I actually think this is kind of like part of being just human and in tuned with things, that you can kind of feel things. I don't know. Like I have no basis of this, but I know it's been confirmed by multiple people. And anytime I'll tell friends like, ooh, I've got a bad feeling something's going to happen. People are always like, oh God, Carla, please. Like, why? Why do you have to say that right now? Like people know this about me.
I'm about to get married. What are you saying? Like,
right? It doesn't happen all the time, but like, it is something that's common for me.
Well, we are in the same boat there, completely. I mean, everything you said was incredible, and I feel like that is usually the case with people who just have it like come to them versus. And again, there's the woo woo thing, right? At what point does it become woo woo? At what point is it underneath the woo-woo scale, right?
And no judgment for people who are woo-woo. Like, I don't mind that at all. I'm just saying I literally like don't do anything with like tarot cards or tarot for sure. Yeah, I think tarot cards or like I don't see like psychics, or, like that kind of thing. Like all power to you if you do, but I'm just saying like these are just signals I get and like my gut feeling.
Yeah, I love all of that. I love I'm not, I don't know, I definitely consider myself a skeptic and all that shit. But I'm really open to it. I think it's fascinating. I've had a lot of like really wonderful, talented, fucking amazing people on the show who like deal with that stuff and deal with it really, really well. Someone actually read, did like a tarot reading for me on the show a couple episodes. Well, that's a while ago now because now we're growing into a bigger podcast, whatever. But yeah, so I love that, and I'm fascinated by it. The idea that it's different shades of intuition, it's different shades of all of that, and Again, I think it's important to make the distinction that everyone is different with intuition, and some people are
Yes.
I'm assuming, hopefully, like me, where it just you get hit with like a like you're in the grocery store and you're like, oh wait, it's like it's not always like that. It's just a feeling or like a vibe or like like
Totally.
it's not always like you need to get out of here or whatever.
Of course, right. It's a feeling that you have.
Yeah,
and it's unexplainable.
and sometimes it's not about anything important, right? Sometimes it's just like
that's true.
This lady smells like peanut butter, and then it like you go into like a thing, but it's like, wait, did she smell like peanut butter, or did I imagine that? Because what is this thing about peanut butter? And then you just let it go because it's a stranger and you don't want to be arrested. So there's that, but also then like that example, and I'll give you another example. I went to this bar down in the corner just to have a couple quick drinks by myself, so judge away, people. And there was a couple, they started talking to me. I'm like, where's this going, and all that. And it was like an hour had gone by. We're just kind of talking about the restaurants in the neighborhood, all that thing. And the guy gets up to leave. Like and like her and I are talking, and I get this like intuitive thought that just says, say, so you guys have been together for 8 years, because they had been together for 8 years, and they had told me that like 3 times because they're hammered, right? And I'm like, I wonder why I should say that. And then so I said, so you guys have been together for 8 years, and she's like, yeah, except, and I'm like, there it is. Whatever I was just fucking programmed to, or suggested. I usually call it the control room, right? It's like people like looking through the windows of my eyes, like with papers, like, why would he say that? All that kind of stuff going on up there. So I get the line from the control room, I say it. And she's like, yeah, except, like 6 months ago, and here he comes back from the bathroom and like sitting down, and he already knows, right? It's already on his face. She's like, well, I mean, you did text her back. And I was like, and it was like it turned into this like actually like insanely uncomfortable. I could tell by the look on his face that he was texting these other women, and she knew it and she couldn't let it go. And it was that fucking weird couple thing that people do. But my intuition had placed me in that for whatever reason.
To stir stuff up?
Probably, And for a long time I thought, man, I must be like an evil person because I'm constantly doing that stuff. I'm constantly causing chaos. And now we're sort of breaking through, and it's like, who cares? Chaos is great, right? And all the stuff. Just be responsible.
Just be responsible, like your little hashtag.
Yeah, right. And so that's another example of my intuition feeding me something, and then just innocently saying it because I want to see where it goes. And I was literally walking home like, oh my God, how did I know that? Right. Yeah. So there's that.
So interesting. I think that we're a lot more in tune than we think we are. And I will say this as well. We've talked on our podcast to trauma therapists and things like that, specialists, and they will say that sometimes people have a hard time differentiating their trauma trigger and their gut feeling. But we did have somebody on the podcast say that those are 2 different feelings. And I can tell you right now, as somebody who has healed from their trauma and as somebody who didn't heal from their trauma and still could feel their gut feeling, those were 2 different feelings for me. So they've always been distinctly different. And I'm not saying that everybody who, that's everybody's path. Everybody experiences trauma differently in their body and things like that. But I can tell you that I felt a gut feeling that felt different than a trauma response or a trauma trigger. And I think that is important, to trust yourself. And I think that goes back to just kind of, if we talk about the codependency stuff again, which anybody who's like, what's codependency? I'm just going to sum it up very quickly for you. It's you're losing a part of yourself to something or someone else or a relationship. So you're trying, a lot of times a perfect example is somebody who's an addict. You're in a relationship with an addict. You're so consumed about getting them sober and getting them help that you neglect yourself. And this can come out in many different ways. It's just a stock standard example. But if we look at codependency, it's disconnection from self. So if you are meeting somebody and you're going on a date and it doesn't feel right, and you tend to be codependent, or you are codependent, or you have characteristics and behaviors of codependency, then you are more likely to say, oh, it's just like, who cares? Like, let me just keep going with this and ignore my gut feeling. Because the need to feel okay and the need to feel validated and loved and like you're enough, because that's really, the root is self-esteem around codependency, a lack of. When you feel that way and you're dating and your gut is like, oh no, this isn't good. And you're like, yes, it is. We're going to do this anyway. Like, F off, right? I can tell you right now that you're more prone to not listening to it because you want it your way versus what intuitively is actually coming up for you.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, that's so like fascinating. And I think, so it makes me want to ask this question. Do you think stupid people are capable of being intuitive, right? And this is why I ask, because because I
define stupid.
Well, hang on. Because there is a bit of a controversial theory, I guess. I don't know.
Oh, okay. Let's hear
that people who are not intelligent are incapable of having anxiety because that part of their brain isn't constantly, like, it's the pendulum thing. It's a creativity. It's an intelligence thing, right?
So know this.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
Yeah. And so now I'm thinking that in the same intuition to me is in the same emotional vein of like anxiety and creativity and strategy and thinking and whatever. So I could be totally full of shit right now, but I have you, someone who's not full of shit, to ask these idiotic questions to. And so here we are. Do you think stupid people are capable of being intuitive?
So I'm not an expert on how we process the brain and all that kind of stuff, but I will tell you right now that I actually would disagree that intuition doesn't have to do with the emotion and feelings necessarily. That it would have to do with the subconscious. So, and the nervous system. But I could all be full of bullshit, right? I'm just listening to what I've learned and things like that and kind of applying it here. So I don't know. To be honest, I have no answer whether stupid people can be intuitive. I think everybody has capacity, though, to be intuitive.
Yeah. Well, and you make a really great point, because emotions are like can be insanely misleading, right? And so that's like almost like contradictory to intuition.
Okay, so there's a great saying, which is feelings are not facts, for exactly what you just said. Just because you feel like the world is ending and it's burning down, I mean,
is it?
I shouldn't use that example, right? Doesn't mean the world is actually ending and burning down.
Sure.
It's not a fact. Or just because you feel like you will never find love and you're unlovable and whatnot doesn't actually mean that you are actually unlovable.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, totally. And that is emotions and can play with anxiety and all of those those things.
Yeah. Oh yeah. All the feelings.
That's why that, crackpot theory, whatever cereal box I got that out of, is is like,
you know what though? I like that you have your theories. It's like you're thinking outside the box.
I say this all outside the cereal box.
I was gonna say that.
Yeah. There's a lot of serendipity happening right now in this interview, which is great. But no, I mean, someone has to ask the questions that are just like, why would he? Again, the control is like, what the fuck is this guy doing? We didn't tell him to ask that. And so here we are. But it makes the show better. Someone's got to ask the quote. There's no dumb questions, but like I kind of ask dumb questions sometimes.
No, I don't think they're dumb.
We have to offset the smart questions, Carla. We can't be smart and talented and whatever all the time,
Yes. Also, you said a word that used to be my favorite word, which was serendipity, because there was a movie back in the day.
Kate Beckinsale.
Oh my God, Serendipity.
I know this movie.
Okay, I used to want that to be my life. I was like obsessed with serendipity. Okay, this is when I was like a child. And I mean, talk about codependent, right? That there was this like magical world, this fantasy thing where all of a sudden who you're supposed to be with came to you and all these signs. I mean, you can see where my head was at as a child already, just so codependent. Now as an adult, I can't even watch that movie. I'm like, this is so unhealthy. They like cheat on their people and like have this like unhealed enmeshment. I'm like, what is going on here?
Mhm.
So anyways, I just had to throw out that movie.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm a pop culture nut. I think I probably like went with my high school girlfriend or something. I don't even know when that came out, but it was definitely,
I think it was the 90s.
Yeah, okay. So
I think.
Yeah, it had to have been the 90s. So yeah. So, I know that movie, but yeah, I mean, I think people play with that, right? We talked a little bit about like, social media and all the other stuff sort of playing on and that can go into like intuition too, because if you're being bombarded with these signs, which are actually just ads, right?
Yes.
Maybe it confuses your intuition a little bit. Because I had someone on the show a couple episodes back and she's like, I don't want lip filler, right? I don't want it. But my brain keeps suggesting it because I keep seeing it on Instagram and somehow
interesting.
I think I'm really great looking and whatever. But then my brain keeps saying, oh, well, if you had and I'm like, first of all, that's poison. And second of all, but it could totally mess with so I guess my question to you would be, how can people be sure with all this talk of emotion and Facebook ads, how can people be sure that what they're feeling is truly like their intuition and not Maybelline's or whatever, right?
Maybe it's Maybelline.
Exactly.
I have my clients do just basically a simple body check exercise. So I ask them, okay, what is your gut telling you? And it doesn't have to be in your gut. So where is this feeling? Okay. So let's say my client says my gut. Okay.
Sure.
So what is your gut telling you? What's the connection to your gut, to your heart, or to your brain, right? People want to interpret it differently. So it's really about whatever that person feels connection to. And then from there, it rolls out off their tongue very quickly. It's not impulsive in the sense that like squirrel, like from Up. You guys know Up. Okay. Anyone who's listening to
that one I don't know, but I'm sure they do.
Oh my
I know,
oh my God.
I
You
know.
Have to watch Up. What is wrong?
I don't know.
Have you not seen it?
You know what else I haven't seen? I haven't seen Titanic and I have not seen The Notebook. So but Serendipity, hey, Serendipity.
But yeah, you are fucked up enough to see Serendipity.
Totally, 100%.
I'm kidding. So, all right. So, but this is the thing that, I say it's not impulsive. So it doesn't feel like an impulse, like you're just blurting something out, but it kind of just like comes to you. It's almost just like this is interesting. And it's not intense, like, get out of here, run. Like that's fight or flight, right? Like, so but it can just kind of roll off your tongue. And if you're resistant, it's because you're probably in front of it trying to control it. You're afraid of it. You fear it because deep inside you already know what it's telling you. So if you're having trouble connecting, you probably actually know what it's saying. You just haven't been able to accept it yet yourself. So then that prevents you from being able to move forward and say, well, this is what's going on. But typically, I mean, I have clients all the time. They'll say, yeah, well, my gut's telling me that this is not right and there's something off with this guy. And I say, okay, so what do you want to do about it? Like, well, I'm not ready to be done yet. I'm like, okay, so then, I don't ever encourage people and tell them like, oh, unless they're in a serious, dangerous situation, that's a whole different thing. And we're not talking about that right now. But intuitively, like, I don't feel like this is a right fit. And he's not right for me. And there was kind of a weird flag that he had. And it just doesn't feel right. Then but they're like, but I'm not ready to say goodbye yet. I'm like, okay, so let's sit with the gut feeling. Let's acknowledge it. Let's say it out loud. Let's speak it into existence. Because now you have options in front of you, right? You can choose to go with your gut feeling, or you can choose to lean into it a little bit, or you can just choose to go and do what you feel is best right now for you. And that's okay. There's no right or wrong. Because what I believe in and what I feel is that when you have these gut feelings, eventually you end up on the path that you're supposed to be going on. The truth always comes out. You can look at God, there's a stat. I'm going to mess it up. I want to say it's around 80%. 80% of women who feel that they're being cheated on intuitively can actually feel it and usually are confirmed to be correct without confirming that they are being cheated on. I think don't quote me. I think it's about 79%. I don't know, 80%, something like that. It's a big number. I don't know. Whatever. You guys can look it up yourselves, but I do know there's a percentage there. And so people know, like, the truth eventually comes out. And I don't want to sit here and say like it always comes out and you're in it. I'm going to shame you because you weren't intuitive or you didn't pick up on it or you didn't go after it. Like, no, like I'm not here to shame anybody. I'm just here to say that it's a subtle message that I think is important to look at.
Yeah, it's huge to look at. Like there almost is no other message except for that flashing fucking sign in front of you, right?
The neon sign.
But it brings up an interesting point, right? And that is, if they are all but convinced and they can feel they're being cheated on, right? What if that's not true? And like we talked about emotion clouding your intuition,
Sure.
which is a brilliant point to some of my Nimrod stuff earlier. But that's what you're here for, right? So balance out my Nimrod. And I think so if someone thinks that they're being cheated on and they don't really have any, but they're sure, but maybe they're not, like, would you just straight up and ask your partner at that point? Or like how do you get right with yourself, and then that way you can go and talk to your partner about it first?
So I think you bring up a good point, because not everybody who feels intuitively like, oh, I'm being cheated on is being cheated on, right? And you can also say too, like if you have anxious attachment style, you might fear that your partner's going to cheat on you. But once again, I mean, there is a different intuitive feeling of being, but like I said, some people can't differentiate it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's go with, I'm just going to go with the person isn't being cheated on. How do they, but they're afraid or they fear it. Okay. So if that's the case, then I think, you got to look at the facts. What do you know here? What have you seen? Is there anything, any time, and this is going to actually check in with the people who feel intuitive. Anything you can look back that really stuck out to you that feels off but seems subtle. That when your intuition starts to speak to you, that's the subtlety of it. It's not blazing like, oh, in your face, get out of here, run. It's a subtle whisper.
Yeah.
It can be very subtle. And so if you can look back into terms of conversation with your partner, things they said, things they didn't do, the way they moved their phone away from you subtly, the way they changed the conversation, maybe when you're bringing something up, those are all intuitive things. But say that none of that was happening, that you're just like, I think this person's cheating and they're not. That is a conversation to be had with your partner. And you can be open and say, hey, look, I don't have any signs. I don't have anything in concrete information in front of me that you're cheating, but this fear of mine just keeps coming up. Are you open to talking with me about it? And maybe we can kind of discuss like how we define cheating, or what this would look like in our relationship if one of us did cheat, and let's talk about it. So then you're opening the conversation to really bring you guys together to have more meaningful conversations. And I think regardless of whether you feel this way or not, every single couple, whatever type of relationship you are in, should define what cheating means and should talk about cheating and what your deal breakers are around it. And so, having this conversation from this standpoint, I think is important for somebody who's maybe not being cheated on, but feeling insecure or feels like maybe something could be off or they're being triggered from their past. And that actually can grow the relationship a lot stronger together. Flip side, somebody who does feel like they're being cheated on, that's when you look for subtleties. Did I think I smelled perfume? Did I think that, or was I crazy? If you start to feel, am I crazy? Why am I thinking this way? This person wouldn't cheat. When you start to feel these feelings and intuitively you just are like, it doesn't make sense that they cheat, but I'm just feeling this. Lean into it.
Yeah.
Lean into it. Do not paint that red flag green. Follow it. And it can be really painful. Okay. Like this is this is a lot of the work I do with clients. I believe the most important relationship that you have is the relationship with yourself. Okay. So it is stemmed from a place of self-love. When you love yourself, which is a journey, because we all go through shit in life. And even if you have the best self-love tools and skills, everybody needs to fine-tune them, including myself, somebody who's done the work, who's an expert in this. I also fine-tune my self-love. It is a journey for everybody. But when you have that foundational trust with yourself, when you know that you're not going to let anything else get in the way between you and what you have in that relationship within, then that creates a really strong bond for when you feel intuitive, when you know something is not right. And so I challenge anybody who doesn't feel, oh, the cheating, like, I don't know, I'm not feeling right. Lean into it. If it's really coming from your gut, trust yourself. You don't have to run to your partner and say, show me your phone, what's going on this second, right? But sit with it, journal about it, talk it over with friends that will support you and will not try to convince you out of it. That's the key, because people can do a great job of, oh, this person would never cheat on you. Come on, you're just bringing up stuff from the past. It is possible to have stuff from the past be triggered and also have an intuitive feeling that something's not right in the relationship. Both can coexist together.
Do you want to pick up your microphone and slam it down? Because what a way to fucking end the episode on like such a powerful beat, right? Carla Romo, let's remind them where they can find you, where they can work with you, but also, if you would, give a little tiny update of what's coming up on your podcast, in your life. Are you writing another book? Are we doing a Netflix special? What's happening?
Oh, you brought up the book, which is so funny to me, and we're going to see if it happens, but I've been intuitively starting to feel maybe it's time to write another book, but it hasn't quite come to me just yet. So we'll see. I'm going to sit on that one for a little bit, but we'll see. I have some ideas stirring. But you can find me at I am Carla Romo or just carlaromo.com. I am Carla Romo is my handle for everything. TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, you got it. And then my website is carlaromo.com. DM me if you're interested in coaching or just talking about some things. And then we've got the podcast. Shara Gaba is my co-host. She and I are 30 years apart. She is a licensed social worker. She's freaking awesome. So the podcast gives like a unique perspective, and we always have experts on, weekly. We release our episodes every Friday, and it's called The Love Fix, and it's out everywhere.
Yeah. I mean, everybody run, don't walk. Go buy the book. Go listen to the podcast. Find her on TikTok, Instagram. She will be back. I promise.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I'd love to come back.
No, it's an honor to have you back. And I'm really happy to see you. So thank you so much for doing Sex Party again. And we'll talk soon.
Thanks, Dustin.
Thank you so much to Carla Romo for returning to Sex Party this week with me. Awesome show. Go check out all the stuff that she's doing. Go check out the Love Fix podcast. Let her know you appreciate all her work. And speaking of appreciation, we do this every week, but if you guys are appreciating guests like Carla, if you're appreciating Sex Party, there's a couple different ways you can show that appreciation. If you are listening to this on platforms like Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, Google, you can leave a rating on the show. You can subscribe to the show. You can tell your friends. You can say, hey, there's this sex and relationship show. The host is like a silly fuck. I'm not sure what he's going to say. Most of the time, I think he adds a dimension of care and value and humor to it. But check it out. If you're watching on YouTube, yo. We good? If you're watching on YouTube, you can subscribe to the channel. You can like the video. You can leave a comment. If you want to talk to me, you can do so by reaching out in the DMs on Instagram. And as always, I will see you right back here next week.
Thanks for listening. The party continues next week. Click subscribe and let's make this a regular thing. Follow the show on Instagram and Twitter at SexPartyFM. Follow Dustin at Dustin Rybka.